All right, chapter 4, My Father, My Father. Last chapter we saw Joseph's brothers sought to destroy him. Really good week last week, Bobby, you missed it. We saw the pain that he experienced from this betrayal. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, and it was such a good story to go through with this offense. All right, so we saw the pain he experienced from betrayal. Maybe you're in a similar situation. Maybe you've experienced family members or close friends that have betrayed you. People that you loved and wanted encouragement from. In this chapter, we're going to look at a situation more painful than a betrayal of a brother. It's one thing to experience rejection and malice from a brother, but it's entirely different to experience rejection and malice from a father. And he's not just referring to biological fathers. He's referring to mentors and people who have that father figure in our life. Any leader that God puts over us. I'll probably talk a little bit more about it in a second, but Sean was in this place. Sean lost his father when he was young. And when Sean got saved and became a part of the church there in Key West, the pastor was a spiritual father. A true picture of what a spiritual father is. Sean couldn't have loved him any more than he did his own dad. Like, he just was that leader, that mentor, guided Sean through from baby Christian to preacher to youth pastor and that kind of thing. And so I'm going to talk about that in just a second, though. So let's look at the relationship between King Saul and David. Their lives touched even before they met. Okay, even before King Saul and David met, Samuel, the prophet of God, anointed David to be the next king of Israel. So Samuel anointed King David to be the next king of Israel before he even met the king of Israel, which was Saul. So before he even met Saul, he already had a relationship because he's going to be the future king, right? And so this is the same man that anointed Saul as king, and now he's anointing David as king. Okay? I'm sure he was excited. I'm going to be the king, right? Back at the palace, Saul was being tormented by an evil spirit. Many of you have heard this story. He was being tormented by the evil spirit because he had disobeyed God, and he asked around and wanted someone to come and minister him. And one of Saul's servants suggested David. David was the son of Jesse. And then so King Saul sent for David and asked him to come and to minister to him. And I believe he played the harp, right? And that what he did was to play music and soothe Saul's spirits. I think that's what he did. Yeah. So David must have thought, man, God is already bringing this to pass. Like, I was anointed as king, and now I'm getting to play for the king and minister to the king. Like, this is already coming to pass, right? Surely I'll win his favor, and this will be my entry-level position. Time passed, and we all know the story of David and Goliath. Nobody could kill Goliath. They were at war with the Philistines. And so David saw the Philistine champion Goliath mocking the army of God and learned that this had gone on for 40 days. Nobody could handle it. Nobody could take care of it. So he found out that the king had offered his daughter's hand in marriage to the man who defeated this giant. So David went before the king, requested permission to fight. He killed Goliath, and he won Saul's daughter. But then he had won Saul's favor, and he was brought into the palace to live with the king. Jonathan, Saul's oldest son, made a covenant of everlasting friendship with David. In everything Saul gave David to do, the hand of God was on him, and it prospered. I'm just kind of giving you, I highlighted places, so I'm just kind of giving you guys this story as best I can. And even me, it was a refresher for me. Like, I've heard parts of this story preached my whole life, but I kind of wanted to see the whole story again. So that's what we're doing. So Saul had favor. He moved into the king. He had favor all Saul favored David over all of his other servants, and he became like a father to him. David was rejoicing in God's faithfulness and goodness, but in one day, everything changed. Saul and David returned from battle, and all the women came out dancing and singing. Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. Well, what did that do?
Make him jealous.
That made him jealous. This infuriated Saul. So from that day forward, he despised David. Twice, as David tried to play his heart for him, Saul tried to kill him. The Bible says that Saul hated David because he knew God was with David, but not with him. David was forced to run for his life, and he had nowhere to go but the wilderness. What must he have been thinking? So this man was his mentor. His mentor was trying to kill him. But what did he do? What could he do? I mean, Saul was God's anointed servant. He said, with him against me, I don't have to stand a chance. Okay, he's the king of Israel. He's got lots and lots and lots and lots of men. Okay, lots of resources. So Saul chased David from wilderness to wilderness, cave to cave. He took 3,000 of Israel's finest warriors, and they had one purpose, and that was to kill David, destroy David. At this point, the promise was just a shadow. I mean, David had been already anointed as the next king of Israel, and the king of Israel was trying to kill him. He no longer lived in the palace. He no longer lived, eating at the king's table anymore. He inhabited caves and ate the scraps of wilderness beasts. He was hunted by the men who once fought by his side. There was no warm bed, servants to attend him, no royal court. His bride was given to another. He knew the loneliness of a man without a country. But notice that God, not the devil, but God placed David under the care of Saul. Why would God not only allow this, but also plan it? That doesn't seem right. It was a prime opportunity for David to be offended. Saul became determined to kill him at any cost. His madness increased. He became a desperate man. So the priests in the city of Nob provided David with shelter, food, Goliath's sword. They knew nothing about David running from Saul, thought he was on a mission for the king. They inquired of the Lord and on David's behalf and sent him on his way. So when Saul found this out, he was furious. He killed 85 innocent priests and their families. Hold on, I just lost my place. Yeah, he killed 85 innocent priests of the Lord and put the entire city of Nob to the sword. They were innocent. He was a murderer. Saul was a murderer. And I mean, how could God ever put his spirit on such a man, right? Haven't we ever thought that? Have we ever sat under leaders or known of leaders and think, how could God ever anoint that person? Seen things, decisions they've made, mistakes they've made. And we're going to talk about that. So during their journey, they stopped to rest at the entrance of a cave, not knowing that David was hiding in the back. Saul removed his outer robe and laid it aside. So what did David do? He quietly went up, cut a corner of it off, and then crept back in. After Saul left the cave, David bowed down to the ground and cried after him. Because David didn't really want to kill him. David wanted him to know, I could have killed you, and I didn't. I want your favor back. I want to be under your fathership. I want to be, in your favor again. He said, my father, see, yes, the corner of your robe is in my hand. Know and see that there is neither evil nor rebellion in my hand, and I have not sinned against you. Yet you hunt my life to take it. David's cry was, my father, my father. He was crying, see my heart. Be a father to me. I need a leader to train me, not to destroy me. Even while Saul was trying to kill him, David's heart still burned with hope. I mean, this man has killed and killed and killed. has hunted him down, and David still wanted to come back into his sonship under this man and be mentored and be trained. He says, I've seen this cry in countless men and women in the body of Christ. Most of them are young and with a strong call of God in their lives. They cry out for a father, a man to disciple, love, support, and encourage them. That's what the Bible says in Malachi 4:7. It says that he would turn the hearts of the fathers, leaders, to the children, people, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the earth with a curse. A lot of churches talk about spiritual sons and fathers. We talk about it a lot. I'm trying to think how we refer to it now. We say, can't even think how we say it now, but we talk about sons and daughters, and we talk about that in a mentoring sense. So a lot of church leaders are very intentional about spiritual sons and daughters. Okay, so not unlike Saul, many leaders in our homes, corporations, churches are more concerned with their goals than with their offspring. Because of this attitude, these leaders view God's people as resources to serve their vision instead of seeing the vision as the vehicle to serve the people. Let me say that again. They serve their vision instead of seeing the vision as the vehicle to serve the people. The success of this vision justifies the cost of wounded lives and shattered people. Justice, mercy, integrity, and love are compromised for success. Decisions are based on money, numbers, and results. When we went to our church in Michigan, when we left, I've got like tons of zigzags in my eyes. Sorry, I get this frequently. It's that they call it a optical migraine, I think. It doesn't hurt. It makes zigzags in your eyes. It's so annoying. It goes away after a little bit.
Do you want me to send lights on?
No, I'm like looking at the zigzags right there right now, and they'll move. Like it's right over here. We left school, like when we were done with school, seminary, we went to Michigan and replanted a church there. And the leader of this church, oh my goodness, you could write a whole book about him. Maybe I should someday. No, I'm serious. Like,
he was crazy.
Oh, the man, I think he started good and ended up thinking he was a god. And the lives that he destroyed and the things, there are people who still to this day will never darken a church door again because of the things that he did. And I've often said, those people's blood is on somebody's hands. Mm-hmm. He pastors now. He's back in the Church of God. But he did a lot of damage because of this. Because he served his vision instead of seeing the vision as the vehicle to serve the people. It was about him and what he wanted to do. It was about his agenda. It was about his trip to being God. And he sacrificed things like justice, mercy, integrity, and love, and he compromised all that stuff for success. And he was successful for a short while. And then it got out of control. And people started to leave, and he lost everything that he had. And then we came in and picked up the pieces. So this really does happen. You know, maybe you don't know personally of it happening. But this really does happen. Saul had a kingdom to protect. This type of treatment is acceptable in the leaders' minds because they're pursuing the furtherance of the gospel. How many leaders have cut off men under them because of suspicion? I circled this word because this is just so true. Like Saul, they are insecure in their calling. They're insecure in their calling. And that breeds jealousy and pride. They're willing to use people as long as it benefits them. I've seen this happen way too many times. Saul enjoyed the success of David until he saw it as a threat to him. Saul was fine with David until he became a threat. They're saying he's greater than I am.
Yeah.
And then everything changed because he was insecure. He couldn't handle it. He says, I've talked with countless young men and women who cried out for accountability. They wanted that fathership. They wanted to be a spiritual son or daughter. They wanted that accountability. They wanted to submit to a leader, right, who would disciple them. And they felt isolated and alone. And this is because of insecurity. Me and Sean have always talked about writing a book that says, I'm a pastor and I'm insecure. Because we've just seen it so many times. Leaders that are insecure. And it's just, it's not a good thing at all. David was concerned that Saul believed he was rebellious and evil. So he must have been saying in his heart, where have I gone wrong? Where have I gone wrong? David thought if he could prove his love for Saul, this Saul would restore him to favor and the prophecy would be fulfilled. People who have been rejected by a father or a leader tend to take all the blame on themselves. I don't think this happens all the time. But it does happen. You know, I must have done something wrong. I think that probably even happens in the like not spiritual fathers, but earthly fathers. Like when you feel like you've been rejected by a father, some people will say it's because I did something wrong. I didn't do something right. I wasn't good enough, or whatever. I'm sure that happens.
You blame yourself for things because you don't know why they are that way.
Rejecting you.
Or why you're being rejected by them, because they don't give you no explanation why.
Yeah, so it must be you.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem. So that.
And I don't think it's everything. Like, it didn't happen that way with Sean. Let me just tell you what happened with Sean. I told you that his pastor was very much a spiritual father, and like to the T, like definition of a spiritual father. Guided Sean, mentored Sean, took him from baby, like I don't know nothing about the Bible or God, all the way to being a youth pastor and associate pastor and all that. And he was very close to him. And then he got married to me, and then I came into the church, and I played and sang, and I worked in the office as the administrative assistant. And in fact, the pastor was my cousin. We didn't know that when we met, but we found out later that he was on the Shockley side. He was my cousin. And we were close. Sean closer to me. That was his, like, a spiritual father. And Sean was betrayed by him. More than once. It started to happen a lot in the end. And one time we come in on Sunday nights when we still had Sunday night church. Oh, y'all don't know what you're missing. Sundays used to be the longest day of the week. And so we come back for Sunday night church, and he was in his office, and we had come into the church part. And Sean walked back towards the office, and another young man that was being mentored and trained and brought up in the church, in fact, Sean's best friend, the pastor was talking to him about us, about me specifically. And Sean walked in there, and he's like, oh, no, you don't. You can talk about me, but you don't talk about my wife. And so it kind of was the start of our descent. So I don't think it always happens that way. Sean's personality doesn't lend towards I did something wrong. Like, Sean's all about justice and, like, I didn't do nothing wrong, That's how Sean is. So it doesn't always happen that way. But I think some people can fall into that where they feel like it's their fault.
But it's characteristics. It's learned behaviors or trained behaviors, if you want to look at it that way. When a person's growing up, they're going to learn things from the people closest to them. Yeah. And it's, not always a negative, and it's not always a positive, and it's combinations, and yeah. So certain people will learn how to cope with or live with certain identities. Like you say, Sean doesn't get offended like that because his pride or ego may not get in the way.
Well, I think he got offended, but he didn't handle it like that. Right. Like, he didn't be like, oh, what did I do wrong? And some people would. And some people, right. David very well could have.
But he's on the other side. And right.
This man has mentored me, has trained me, and now betrayed me.
Just like Joseph.
And he's like my father.
Joseph's brothers did what they did. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
Joseph was like, no, it's all good.
Yeah.
No matter.
These people are
Yeah.
way better than us.
Different. Yeah.
Oh, who
Yeah.
So David thought that
you and him.
I hear you.
Yeah, how you?
Oh my, I mean, I see you.
I see you twice.
Crazy. So he thought if he could prove his love for Saul, that it would restore him to favor, and that this prophecy would be fulfilled, that he would be the next king of Israel. So yeah, what did I do? Was my heart impure? They constantly tried to prove their innocence to their leaders. But if the leader's bad, you try all day long to prove whatever you want. It's not going to do anything because they've already said in their heart, they already have their heart turned toward that way. Yes, Bobby, I saw what you said. Hi, Alex. I didn't see you pop on. I almost missed your name right there. Yeah, abuse children love and seek love from their parent. They do. They still want it. And David, most likely, I mean, we see in Scripture, you know, he had a chance to kill him and he didn't kill him. Like, he wanted to be back into the love of his spiritual father, his mentor. Sadly, the more they try, the more rejected they feel. Because they're trying, you know. David said, hey, look, I could have killed you, right? I cut off your cloth. Set me back. Take me back. And do you think he would feel more rejected after that, still not getting the favor of Saul again?
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to feel even more rejected, right?
Okay.
Saul acknowledged David's goodness when he saw David could have killed him, and he did not. So he left, and his men left. So now David must have thought, well, the king will restore me. Surely he sees my heart and will treat me better now. Not so fast. Only a short time later, men reported to Saul that David was in the hills of Hakala. Saul went after him again with the same 3,000 soldiers. I'm sure this devastated David. He realized he wasn't a misunderstanding, but that Saul was intentionally, without provocation, seeking his life. How rejected he must have felt. Saul knew his heart and still marched against him. So, here we go again. David was with Abishai. They slipped into Saul's camp, right? God put all the soldiers to sleep. So that must mean I have justification, right? God put these soldiers to sleep. I'm going to march right through this camp, right into Saul's quarters, right? So Abishai pleaded with David, let me strike him. Like, you have every right for revenge. Like, this man tries to kill you, has tried to kill you more than once. God provided the opportunity for us to walk in. Let me kill him. He murdered 85 innocent priests and their families in cold blood. He sent out 3,000 people to kill David. He says, if you don't kill the enemy first, he will surely kill you. It's self-defense.
I like the next line too, though. Because he's like, every court of law allows for
Every
that.
court of law allows for that.
Like,
You're not in the wrong.
Yes.
Bro, you got this. You got it. You got this. You're not in the wrong. You're in the right. God, through Samuel, had anointed David as the next king of Israel. David should claim his inheritance. Or he's going to end up a dead man, right? Fourth, God put this entire army to sleep so that David and Abishai could walk right up to Saul. Why else would God put all these people to sleep, right? Abishai said to David, probably never get another chance like this again. All these reasons sounded good, right? If David was the least bit offended, he would have felt totally justified and would have allowed Abishai to put a spear through Saul. But listen to David's response. Do not destroy him, for who can stretch out his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? As the Lord lives, the Lord shall strike him. On his day shall come to die, or he shall go out to battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. David would not kill Saul, even though Saul had murdered innocent people and wanted to murder David as well. David would not avenge himself, but he left it in the hands of God. David made this decision even though he knew Saul's only comfort was the thought of his destruction. Saul's only comfort was the thought of David's destruction. David had proved his purity of heart when he spared Saul the first time. Yet even when David had a second chance to kill Saul, he would not touch him. Saul was anointed of the Lord, and David left him in God's hands to judge. How many people today have a heart like David's? We no longer kill with physical words, though. We don't go kill people. I mean, I don't be like, oh, Tori, I'm sending 3,000 of my men over to kill you. I mean, we don't live in those times, right? But man, do we kill with words and actions.
Yeah.
The tongue is a very powerful weapon. And he points out the verse, death and life from the power of the tongue, from Proverbs 18:21. Churches split, families divide, marriages shatter, and love dies, crushed by an onslaught of words launched in hurt and frustration. Offended by friends, family, and leaders, we take aim with words, sharpened by bitterness and anger. Even though information may be factual and accurate, motives are impure. So David had every right legally and motively to kill Saul. But he said, no, that is God's anointed, and I'm not going to touch him. God is going to deal with him. So we might have factual information. We may have good reason to be offended and to take action against people. But our motives are impure. In fact, Proverbs 6:16-19 says, sowing discord or separation among brethren is an abomination to the Lord. I don't want to be an abomination. That's when we repeat something with the intention of separating or damaging relationships or reputations. Even though it's true, it is still an affront to God. I talked about this morning in my morning proverb. I talked about the fact that, because it was, let's see, the verse was about, no, it was yesterday, I think. It was this week sometime.
It was yesterday, I think.
About flame, the tongues being flame or something.
Yeah, I think it was.
Or no, wait, it was,
it
hold
today?
on. No, it was, I looked it up. It was, I can't even remember now. But anyway, it's people who their intent is to destroy and hurt and damage. Yeah. And so, this is a really big problem in the world today. A really big problem. He goes on to talk about this story. Did you guys all read this story about how he was
Offended.
Yeah, offended. This leader had come against him. He was a youth pastor and on staff in this church, and they singled him out and spread rumors about him and said the pastor was going to fire him and all this stuff. And he could have left. He just felt like he had every right to leave and go find another church, but he just felt like, this is where God wants me. This is where God placed me. I'm going to stay. And so the time came, the pastor was going to have him and this other guy in his office. And when he went in there, it was just him, not the other guy. And he said, you're staying here. God sent you here and you're staying here.
Because the guy was trying to get him fired.
Mm-hmm. And actually he came back around. He apologized to the man, even though he didn't have to. Humbled himself before this man, and they had a good relationship in the end, which is crazy. Let's see. I think I have just a few end notes.
For that guy.
Oh, yeah.
That he was nice to him after he was trying to get him fired.
And then he went on to another story, too, about another church that he set under the leader, and the leader was making wrong decisions and bad decisions, and he was encouraged to leave. He left for a few months, but didn't feel peace about it, and came back, talked to the man, asked for her forgiveness for being critical and judgmental, and let's see. Is this the same guy that was the first guy or the second guy? Hold on. Oh, this is the first guy. No, I think that was the second guy that he had a good relationship with. This guy, that he was talking about him. Let's see. Hold on. I shouldn't even told the story because I didn't like mark it up or anything. Why is this man after you? The pastor asked him to go and make it right between them. And so he prayed and went to the man and asked for forgiveness. So the
Yeah,
man
yeah.
softened.
And he had evidence against that man that he was doing.
He did, and he destroyed it. He decided not to. Very, very David-like story here, if you guys saw the parallel. From that day forward, the attack stopped, and even though a problem continued between him and some of the other pastors. But 6 months later, while he was ministering out of the country, all the wrong that this man had done was exposed to the senior pastor. And it had nothing to do with him, but other areas of ministry. And what he found out was going on was way worse than what happened to him. So he was fired immediately. But then later he did. Yeah, this is the same guy.
Yeah, he sees him at the airport.
He sees him at the airport, and they had made amends, and he'd humbled himself, and everything was going well with him and all that stuff. So then what he ends this chapter with is David was wise when he chose to let God be Saul's judge. You ask, whom did God use to judge Saul? The Philistines. Saul, along with his sons, died battling them. But when Saul died, do you think he should have been excited?
No.
He was not excited. He did not celebrate. He mourned. In fact, David became king. We know that, right?
Yeah.
Here's what David did when Saul died. I mean, this man was bad to him.
That's crazy.
Bad.
Evil.
This is how honorable and how, the Bible always says that David was a man after God's own heart. And this is what a man after God's own heart does. He ordered, there was a man that said, are you not, how was it you were not afraid to put forth your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? David asked. Oh, no. One man from the side boasted that they killed Saul. And so David confronted him, and he ordered that man to be executed.
Yeah.
And then David composed a song for the people of Judah to sing in honor of Saul and his sons. He told the people not to proclaim it in the streets of the Philistine cities, lest the enemy rejoice. He claimed no rain or crops in the place where Saul was slain. He called for all of Israel to weep over Saul. This is not the heart of an offended man. An offended man would say he got what he deserved. How many times have me and my husband said that about other ministry leaders? I wish he was in here. Well, that man got what he deserved.
Right.
I'm being transparent. I've said it about people. He got what he deserved. He don't deserve anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Yeah.
But that's not what David did. He went even further. He did not kill the remaining seed of the house of Saul. Instead, he showed kindness to them. He gave land and food to them. And he granted a descendant a seat at the king's table. That is not what an offended man does. David was rejected by the one who should have fathered him. But he remained loyal even after Saul's death. It is easy to be loyal to a leader or a father who loves you, but what about one who is out to destroy you? Will you be a man or woman after the heart of God, and will you seek to avenge yourself? It's pretty good. Okay, so let's think about this. I think it's really easy for us to look at a story like this in the Bible and think that it's kind of unreal. And not be able to apply it to our own lives.
Oh no, because
it sounds too good to be true. Who's gonna do that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But this whole book, this chapter, just really stuck out to me because I've been super emotional lately. And then when I was reading it, then I was emotional. But it was kind of God was telling me something. I have been rejected by people I was close to. I didn't have that close relationship with my mom or my dad. But so I think things from my past is that I didn't deal with before. Now I'm dealing with those now. But God is kind of working on with me through those. But
and it kind of goes back to the chapter we talked about praying for people.
yeah.
These people that really are. I mean, we've all had somebody in our life that you're just oh, God, I don't understand why they do the things they do. I don't even want to be around them. Just what are we supposed to do with those people? Pray for them, be good to them, give them things. What was the list? I was no. And we even talked about that. I think it was last week or the week before. But we talked about that because I think Alicia brought it up from some of her recovery stuff. Can you pray for the person that you're offended by or that you have ought against? Can you pray for them in a way that you'd want to be prayed for yourself? Like
Maybe
the
not.
things
You
that you
wouldn't
want
to.
in your
You
life?
wouldn't want to,
No.
but you can't.
That's what we're supposed to do.
But you
No, I
should.
know.
It's easier to do that than act like them and be more mad.
Yeah, and be angry.
Because you get just as mad as they
No,
do.
my
and
mom
they
did
get
it. My mom did something to me, and I didn't talk to her for over a year.
Bingo.
And that's how I felt with my mom.
I
Like,
think
I
that
don't
there's
need
a
to talk
time-
to my mom anymore,
there's a
and I
time.
don't want to have a relationship with her. And then God was like, you do want to have a relationship with your mom. She just hurt you. You were offended by what she did, but you need to give her another chance. And all I could do is pray for her and talk to her.
And, you know, we've already seen Lynette. She's just commenting and commenting, y'all. She wants to be Zoom. You need to get your butt here.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, I just said that on Facebook. Get your tail here.
No,
She's like, we need to do this on a Zoom because she wants to talk. Get here.
Yeah, exactly.
Before all this happened with my
Um,
mom, so I didn't really have nobody to talk to.
Yeah. Do you realize how many people are walking around with all these hurts and offenses that they've been carrying their whole life?
But
And I
it's
think when we look at
exhausting.
the story of David or we look at the story of Joseph, we're like, that's unreal. No, it's not. Like, if these men could do it, then that means God gave us the ability to do it too.
You're right, and that's why I say it's a matter of timing. Because if you're walking with God, if you're in a great relationship with God, and it carries on that way, I know for a fact it's a lot easier for me to pray for my enemies, and I don't mean like praying and asking for bad things for them, praying for them to be saved, praying for them to have.
What if they're saved?
Praying for them to have better attitude, praying for good.
Save people do bad things.
Right,
To
right.
save people,
Save
offend
people, offend people.
So you still pray for them,
Yeah.
and you.
I mean, these were his leaders. These
and
were
you
spiritual
keep going
leaders
on that.
that
But that's
John
then.
Bevere talks
That's
about.
Then.
No, but even
This
John
is today.
Bevere.
Yeah,
John
he
Bevere.
talks-
That's then. That's then. This is today.
Yeah, but like
When
these
we-
weren't just
when we
sinners.
spread-
These were good people.
Understood. And just like you just said, the good people of today. Who did you have a problem with in Michigan?
Huh?
Who did you have a problem with in Michigan? Who did Sean have a problem with in Michigan?
Oh, the former pastor. Yeah.
Okay, not
mean, he
necessarily a
was
bad guy.
Well, he was pretty bad.
Then,
But
what about
but
before
do
and
you guys
after?
remember when we talked about? And I don't remember if it was the first or second week. But do you remember when we talked about the fact that you have to give people the right to offend you?
Yeah,
Right.
that's
that
what.
was the first.
So even though you were bad, and I see all the fruit of your deceptive,
That's the point.
selfish,
Right.
insecure leadership, I do not have the right to be offended. I mean, I have the right,
Timing.
but I can't be offended by that. It's not mine to be
So you're
offended.
gonna-
I have to let God deal with you.
Amen. So you're gonna say that Sal was a great guy. He was great.
He was a great leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
And he
great.
killed 85 priests and their families.
But I'm still.
But that's all I'm saying. It's timing. It's about the time. It's when.
Yeah, timing.
When. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You can pray for your enemy. Are we ever going to be able to walk like David? Heck no. I know I'm not. I will never be able to walk like David. Ever.
But we should.
You can
We
strive for it.
we should be striving for that.
You should
Yeah.
strive for it. I'll
And
be
a quick
honest.
show.
Yo, I mean, but my takeaway is like we look at these biblical characters and think that's unachievable, when the same God that helped them do that is the same God that wants us to walk free of offenses and to be able to put people in God's hands and us not judge them. And it's just hard as crap.
All get out.
Is when we are tempted to be offended,
Yeah.
we say no. And we don't allow the devil to use offense to get to our heart. And that's the whole goal of this
Yeah.
study and talk and discussions, is that we learn to not get offended when that offense is given opportunity to offend us.
She'll not be offended.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our friend Eric was going to take her and me home. I wasn't about to ride in the same car with her.
Ray. That's what
Well,
that says. Ray.
I couldn't ride home with her after she was doing that.
Yeah, well, it hurts. It is. It's hard sometimes.
Right.
Bobby's right. God changed her daughter-in-law's heart and returned her granddaughter. Bobby is a living example of this. Praying for the person that she
Brought her
was.
back?
Yeah. Praying for the person that was causing all this trouble in her life and causing her to have these feelings. And God has turned it around. and she brought her granddaughter back. So it's amazing testimony of what God can do when we humble ourselves and we don't allow that offense to take root in our hearts.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the Joseph, like using the Joseph story and the David story to really see true examples of how God can help us not to be offended and to walk in offense. I think it's hard, but I think what this is doing is just bringing some realization and awareness to it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, we know it, but let's just become aware again of how the devil works in our lives through being offended.
Because sometimes he uses the people closest to you to hurt you.
Most of the time, he does. If you're not close to somebody, you're not really going to be as offended.